Welcome back, historians! I have a surprise for you. Today's lesson begins with a unique pop quiz. I'm going to describe one nation's government, and your task is to listen closely to that description and then see if you can identify the country. Are you ready? Here we go! First clue. In this country, laws are made by representatives who are elected by the people. Second clue. An executive leader who is also elected by citizens can veto or reject those laws. Final clue. Laws are reviewed by judges who are chosen by the executive leader and approved by the elected representatives. Do you have an answer? Time is about up. Okay, which country did you pick? Trick question! There are actually at least two correct answers. You might have answered the United States, but you also could have said Rome. The US government and its system of checks and balances is a great example of how ancient history can have a lasting impact on the world today. Ready to learn more? Let's go! Our objectives today are to describe the political structure of the Roman Republic, including the concept of checks and balances, describe military conquests of the Republic, and explain the fall of the Roman Republic. Are you ready, historians? A long time ago in ancient Rome, they came up with an awesome way to run their government. The Republic was like a giant team game where everyone had to work together and no one could hog all the power. At the center of it was the Senate, a big group of 300 people chosen by the Romans. They were the rule makers and the go-to advisors for the two big bosses of Rome called consuls. These consuls were super important. They were like the captains of the Roman team. Every year, the Romans would pick two of them to make big decisions and ensure everyone followed the rules. But think back to the government we described earlier and that system of checks and balances. Do you think the consuls, which are like our presidents, will be able to do whatever they want? Nope. The Senate had to give a thumbs up too on big decisions. So it was like a big game of rock, paper, scissors, where everyone could win and everyone could be beaten or checked. This kept government power balanced, creating a system called checks and balances. There was also a big group called the Assembly, like in Greece. Here, everyone could have a say. They could choose the consuls and could even hit the undo button and veto decisions by the Senate or consuls if needed. This smart system meant everyone shared power and made decisions together, like a big Roman family. At first, only the super rich folks called the patricians could be in the Senate. But as time went by, everyday Romans, the plebeians, said, "Hey, we want in too." But this was a big step toward making things fair for all Romans. Law was based on the 12 tables, their version of a constitution. And if there was a trial, juries made up of government officials or other citizens usually decided the cases. And a huge part of the Republic was a place that wasn't officially part of the government, the Forum. This was like a big city square where people met, talked, and did business. Big decisions were made here. Okay, let's take a moment to pause here. Now is a great time to go to the PDF and complete the government structure of the Roman Republic and its system of checks and balances portions. Now, with such an awesome government, you might think that Rome got along with everyone, but that wasn't always the case. Some of their biggest disagreements were even with their own neighbors right there in Italy. One big squabble was called the Social War. Here's the deal. Some Italian cities had been under Rome's rule for years, even helping them in battles. But they felt left out because they weren't considered full Roman citizens, meaning they couldn't vote. Imagine playing kickball, but not everyone gets a turn. Not cool, huh? So they decided to stand up for their rights. The result? A huge battle all over Italy. The Romans won, but in a cool twist, they let many of those cities become full Roman citizens anyway. Now, buckle up for the juicy part, the Punic Wars. 3 of them. They were against a city called Carthage in North Africa. Why? Well, both Rome and Carthage wanted to be the boss of the Mediterranean Sea. What was so important about being the top dog, or fish, in the Mediterranean? Yeah, if you controlled the sea, you controlled trade, which meant more money. The First Punic War was like a tug-of-war for Sicily, an island by Italy. But the second one? That was wild. Hannibal, a Carthaginian general, rode elephants over snowing mountains to try and surprise Rome. Yeah, elephants. But Rome didn't back down and stopped him in his tracks. In the last Punic War, Rome went all out and aimed to destroy Carthage. They won, and poor Carthage was left in ruins. So put on your thinking cap and pause here for a second to answer this. What was the end result of Rome's military conquests? Yeah, the result was a huge empire that dominated the Mediterranean and extended across 3 continents. It even included areas that we visited in the past, like Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Greece. Rome used its military to increase trade and bring in more money. This helped Rome grow even mightier, spreading their cool culture all over the place. The Roman Republic was impressive in many ways. It had a political system where people got to have a say, and with its checks and balances, no one group could become too powerful. And get this, it stayed strong for almost 500 years. Let's pause here for a second to readjust those thinking caps. Think about everything you've learned so far about Roman history and culture, how they expanded the empire and built their wealth. What do you think could have ended the Roman Republic's super long run? With all that wealth and power in Rome, it was only a matter of time until someone wanted it all for themselves. You might have heard of a guy named Julius Caesar, a big-time leader of the Roman army. He was famous for winning battles, being super charming, and wanting to be the top dog. With Rome's emphasis on a strong military, Caesar thought, why not be in charge? Now, several military generals had planned to take over Rome before, but Caesar and 2 others created a triumvirate, or group of 3, to really do it. Soon after, Caesar marched into Rome with his army and made himself the boss for life. Just like that, the Roman Republic ended. People no longer had a say in picking their leader. Now Caesar made all the rules. Just 5 years later, Caesar gets a big surprise. He was taken out, assassinated, by people who wanted to restore and save the Roman Republic. But rather than preserve the concept of power to the people, Caesar's nephew, Octavian, stepped in with his own ideas. Octavian wasn't alone. He had an ally, Mark Antony, who was BFFs with Caesar. Later, Octavian and Antony had a big disagreement of their own. Add in Cleopatra, Egypt's queen, and Mark Antony's future wife to the mix, and things really get spicy. Octavian clashed with Antony and Cleopatra, but came out on top, and even added Egypt to his trophy shelf. With that win, Octavian decided he deserved a fancier name and became Augustus Caesar, which means awesome ruler. In fact, the term Caesar has crossed many cultural boundaries to become a synonym for that title. Ever heard of a czar? So the Roman Republic's epic story came to an end, and the Roman Empire was born. The story of the Roman Republic is legendary. Their armies were super powerful and went on big adventures, winning battles, sparking trade, and growing the empire. Most memorably, they had a smart way of sharing power, so no one in government was too strong. That system of checks and balances was designed to prevent one group or person, like an emperor, from taking over. But even good things come to an end, and so did the Roman Republic. So where does Rome go from here? The answer to that is an interesting story too. You will have to wait to find out. Until then, historians, keep uncovering the past and looking to the future. And remember to always be clever. Hey.